Hello, this is Lisa Maione from Kansas City, Missouri. All great things must come to an end, and this is the last day of TypeWknd 2020.
Yes, but what a great type weekend it was. I was so great to be part of it and see all the amazing things we've seen so far in these talks. This is Thomas Jockin from New York City.
We're here to conclude this series of post-game videos going over our top 3 talks from TypeWknd for day 4.
Be part of the conversation and share what talk you love the most from day 4.
Be sure to add the hashtag TypeWknd on Twitter and Instagram. TypeWknd finished strong on day 4. Thomas, ready for you going over your top 3 picks?
Oh, absolutely. I'm gutted that the talks are over. This is it. It's all gone. But, Type Thursday ended on a really strong note. And my top 3 for today were Helenes, now where are our role models? I thought it was a great example of the need in narratives in history of role models. We need things to look at to give us examples to refer to. And I think her work in particular of Elizabeth was very good. I never seen her work before. And I thought it was really a shame we haven't seen it from a historical perspective, like seen any histories of in the past. I thought also her pattern work was absolutely beautiful too. It did remind me of designs I've seen more contemporary, like Emigre fonts, Tangley, for example. Scott's intrinsic typography, the future of typesetting, I thought was also incredibly fascinating. The idea of taking the complexity of typesetting on the web with the CSS code and simplifying it by the use of keyframe animations. That was very subtle and very elegant. But basically, to walk it through, the idea they have two extremes at 0 and 100%. 0% is the smallest viewport, 100% is the highest viewport, and then using an ease function to describe everything that happens in between. And the big idea here, just similar to what we saw at higher order interpolations that Underwear talked about on day 2, is that transition from 0 to 100% is not linear. Instead, it was a Bezier of a cube, so it's a curvature. I thought that was a very interesting idea, just as we're thinking about more advanced nonlinear ways of interpolation in type design. Scott's talking about the same methodology now in the typesetting environment, so scaling up in the typographic world. I thought that was such a fascinating idea. Caleb's talk on building a spacing calculator I thought was very interesting. I thought it was very interesting how it was shot. It felt very like I was in a VR screen looking at things very shaky from a perspective view. I thought that was just a presentation format that was very interesting. And I think Caleb's absolutely correct that type design is a system. And if there's a system, a formula is possible. I think it is great to see just the diversity of approaches one could take to type design or typography. It could be very systematic, very logical, mathematical. It could be very emotive and poetic and expressive. And both are equally valid and appreciated in the talks we saw in TypeWknd this year. Lisa, what was your last 3? What do you have?
Those were great descriptions. Yeah, Scott and Caleb's presentations were so thorough, so thoughtful, so thought-provoking. I admired those as well. Those were definitely in my favorites. Helene's presentation, so phenomenal. Thank you so much for offering this presentation in the mix and TypeWknd. Beatrice Ward, Elizabeth Friedlander, Elsa Marks Penzig. Love these examples. So important to bring these important type designers up into our thinking when we're thinking of precedents and who has been contributing to type. I also love the quotation that she added, type as a carrier of our cultural DNA. I love thinking about how there's so much embedded in the forms that we're making and the forms that we activate in our work. Ronnie's talk on the visual variable font specimen, thought it was really exciting and an impressive way to understand the parameters in a variable font. Seems like a really great tool for students as a learning tool as well, being able to look at the relationship within a type system. I'll also add Kevin Angelis's talk on ephemera in India. Ever inspiring to see how being a collector informs a design practice and how questions of representation come up as you learn about design. The pluralistic attitude in graphic design history has come up in multiple ways over the course of the conference, and certainly both in Helene and Kevin's talk here, amongst others. And that's it. It's been a wild 4 days here at TypeWknd. Both Thomas and I thank you so much for joining us in these post-game talks and the actual conference itself.
It is with your participation, contribution, and promotion that made TypeWknd inclusive, equitable, and diverse. From everyone on the TypeWknd team, thank you so much for being part of the very first TypeWknd conference.
Thomas, what do you plan to do now that Type Weekend is over?
Well, very first thing I'm going to do is get some sleep. Definitely going to need that. But then after that, I have typefaces to work on. I have grade projects to grade. I have books to read. You can follow along at Thomas Jockin on Twitter and Jock in the Box on Instagram. How about yourself, Lisa?
Rest, yes, the glorious rest that will be necessary, especially after all of this. But after a little time to let all this goodness settle in, I'm going to incorporate as many of these talks and insights into the classes I'm teaching right now and in the future. So many people and references to be inspired by and weave in. You can follow me at Berries for Everyone on Instagram and at Lisa Maione on Twitter.
So this is it. This is Type Weekend 2020.
We'll see you next year. Thank you so much, everyone.
Take care, everyone.